Well, earlier on the news, we told the government is being mildly accused by budgets as regards the 2025 budget, and of course the fact that the government has not been transparent in terms of its articulation and presentation of the budget, most especially as it has to do with the allocation of funds to the specific areas of which these particular funds should be expended. And now to actually give more clarity to the issue around the 2025 budgets, and of course having to help Nigeria understand how this translates into the delivery of the dividends of democracy. We are going to be talking to the Group Head, Research and Policy Advisory of BudgIT Foundation, who is Vahyala Kwaga. Vahyala, thank you so much for joining us. We were supposed to have you a couple of minutes back, but we're glad that finally we've been able to establish quality communication with you. So I'm just going to get into it. Let's start with you even having to give an overview of your findings in the 2025 budget. Where were those areas that you felt were shady that needs clarity on?
Thank you so much for having me. As always, it's actually been a while. So the 2025 budget is, as many Nigerians are already aware, Nigeria's largest budget in Naira terms. That is very important because if you were to control for inflation and for depreciation of the Naira, the 2025 budget, 54.9 trillion, in dollar terms is actually slightly less than the 2023 federal budget. So it's important that we see these things for what they are. And this is really to send home the message that the Naira has suffered incredible depreciation and, inflation over the past 2 years. So principally, we've noticed a few things. Firstly, I will begin by saying that the information and the data that should be publicly available, that should be accessible by Nigerians in a timely manner, seems to be more and more of a thing of the past, where you would have information published on the website of the budget office very quickly, and there would even be presentations made by the budget office to Nigerians to really break down the budget and provide some level of analysis. For the 2025 budget, this was not done. Rather, what we saw was a back and forth between the presidency, the executive, and the legislature to increase the total budget size. I'll get to that in a moment. So as we speak, there is no revenue information. There's no breakdown of the full sources of revenue that will fund the 2025 budget. We think that that is an anomaly, and we believe that this information should be publicly available. Also, and this is perhaps one of the key issues, is that there may have been some form of violation of the Fiscal Responsibility Act in two respects. The first one is the way and manner in which the president increased the budget size. If you recall, the president, I think sometime in January, sent a letter to the National Assembly asking them to increase the size of the budget in his estimation because there was additional revenue from some key revenue generating agencies, FIRS, the Nigerian Customs Service, and I think the Electronic Money Transfer Levy, if I'm not mistaken. So we believe that that may likely be a violation, as the Fiscal Responsibility Act clearly states that the budget can only be increased through the presentation of a medium-term expenditure framework. And that medium-term expenditure framework was published in late 2024. If it needed to have been amended, it should have been amended, because a letter, we believe, is not rigorous enough, lacks the detail, and does not take into consideration the serious amount of fiscal projections and analysis required, for the increase or expansion of the budget size by the executive. Now, the second leg of that issue, again, is that regarding the size of the budget. So the Fiscal Responsibility Act as well states that the aggregate expenditure should not exceed the aggregate projected revenue plus 3% of GDP. And by our calculations, the budget should not have been increased beyond 51 trillion. But as we are aware, the budget was pushed to 54.9 trillion, which, like the law provides, is a violation. Now, there are instances where this 3% can be exceeded, but it must be followed by rigorous debate and public information on how the medium-term expenditure framework will be rewritten or at least amended to provide for this change in the budget size. I think I'll stop here for now.
Okay, so even with these that you have said, we are also reading of omissions in the budgets for key agencies like the NJC and TETFUND in the 2025 budget. Now that we're having discrepancies and we're having some omissions, is there anything that speaks to the possibility of Nigerians getting the best, if I'm going to be very satirical about this, as regards these 2025 budgets?
I mean, it's hard to say at this point. In our estimation, and a lot of civil society organizations that work in the transparency and accountability space agree, there seems to be a rollback of the reforms, the hard-fought reforms in transparency and accountability by in the previous administration. You know, we had the Open Treasury, then we had regular updates on the Budget Office website, Budget Office of the Federation website, and now that seems really to be a thing of the past. The Open Treasury website, which was an initiative of the Office of the Accountant General, you know, has not been supplied with information for this fiscal year. If I'm not mistaken, the earliest data or the latest data on the Open Treasury platform, which basically provides monthly data, quarterly data on government spending. I think the latest data is February of 2025, you know, and we're already in May. In addition, the Budget Office has not published any budget implementation reports, you know, save for that of Q2 2024. So we basically do not know how well the 2024 budget, which, by the way, still has capital projects being executed till June, has fared, you know. And in addition to the point you raised about the lack of detail for the NJC, you know, and for other first-line charge ministries, which interestingly was provided in the previous budget, the budget of 2024. You know, I could speak to the issues of insertions as well, but I do not see a government, both an executive and a National Assembly, that is willing to carry the people along in this critical part of the budget process. There are other components of the budget process, the monitoring and evaluation and the audit, you know, which we hope the National Assembly will carry civil society and the public along. And we also hope that the presidency, the executive, would carry citizens along. But these conversations have to go beyond the ministerial briefings that are attended by only those who can afford to go to Abuja. It needs to be followed up with information that is accessible on websites. I mean, these are things that were done very frequently without any form of constraint in the previous administration. And it's actually very concerning that this administration seems to be lagging behind in that regard.
Basically, what we're saying is that we need a lot of clarity on the composition of this budget, and it has to be spelled out for public scrutiny. Well, this is going to be a conversation we're going to continue definitely during the course of our bulletins and on other programs too. But then I want to say thank you so much, Vahyala Kwaga, for bringing this to our knowledge on the news. Thank you so much.